So Andy and Laura, they are strategic account managers from Skeleton Productions, and I'm really thrilled to have them on the show because from my side, I think they're going to share some really interesting insight into what it's like to be a strategic account manager. So Andy, do you mind if I start with you? Can you just spend a couple of minutes talking about your role, what you do, and how you found yourself in account management?
Yeah, thanks for having us on, by the way, Jenny. Yeah, so me personally, I'm a strategic account manager at Skeleton. We work with our clients to offer top-level strategic advice for their video content. Sometimes we branch out a little bit further than that, but primarily it's helping them achieve remarkable things with video. And I kind of came into Skeleton through another agency that was full service. But one of the things that I really, really enjoyed about working there was video. So I kind of made the move to Skeleton purely because of that. But before that, I slightly different world. I used to work in craft beer, so I used to work for Brewdog, and then I ended up working for a smaller company after that, importing beers from America and distributing in the UK and Europe. And so it's quite a bit of a shift, but the sales and the marketing side that I learned while working in craft beer really, really helped me take that first step into agency account management, and then from there I've just kind of grown really.
Amazing, thank you. Very, very interesting and diverse background. And I'm glad you said that the Brewdog experience helped you in your current role. I think, and what specifically, Andy, just before I move on to Laura, what specifically do you think was the key thing that helps you, you know, having worked in another industry and another type of organization?
I think sometimes it learns some like transferable skills. I think when I worked at Brewdog, because I was customer facing as well, it does, I guess, really, really help your confidence with that. And then you also learn how bigger companies work and grow. Because while I worked there, it was quite an expansive growth. So I think you learn about what it takes for a company to grow. And that's essentially what we try to do with our clients. We're trying to help grow a part of their business, grow their offering, grow their team. We're trying to grow something. And I think I learned a lot about that while working at Brewdog.
That's a really interesting and key thing there that you just said was like the business. You understood the business outcomes and from a client's business perspective. Because I think from my side, meeting different agency account managers, you know, that's the shift you need to make, isn't it, to bring the most value. So that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing. Laura, welcome. Can you spend a couple of minutes talking about your background?
Yeah, certainly. Once again, thanks for inviting us on today. It's really, really nice to be invited. So I am a strategic account manager at Skeleton. I look after about 10 of the agency's accounts. They range from B2B to B2C clients and all varying sizes from SMEs to global organizations. Skeleton is very different to what I've done before. It's very niche. So we're a full service video agency that specialises in just video and anything motion related, really. And we offer video strategy right through to delivering the content and distribution. And that's a mix of 2D, 3D, animation, and really using the art of storytelling to create compelling stories that engage and delight our customer audiences that ultimately drive results. The role is very niche and it's very focused just on video and motion, which is different to my backgrounds previously. So previously I've worked in full service agencies. In the 20 years that I've been working within marketing, I started off as an account exec from a trafficker all the way around up to an account director level and also working in marketing as well. So I have worked on the client side too. So it's very different in that we are very focused in terms of we're niche, just that we do video and we do motion. But it has allowed me to draw on those experiences of where I've been in marketing before, for instance, and been a client myself, understanding what's important to the client and what's also important to the agency. And I feel like that really helps kind of, shape your brief, understand what the client's business objectives are, and not just see it from the agency point of view. In terms of the other areas that I've worked in full service, I think it just helps to have that knowledge, just to know where else you can possibly help with the client. So although we specialize in video, it's not to say that we can't say, actually, you really need to do some work on your SEO, or you really need to think about this, and then we can put them together with some other connections. So kind of drawing on all that experience still helps.
I think that's what I love about having worked with both of you. I could see that you both have a strategic mindset, as your title kind of suggests, where you could add different value to the client in lots of different areas. So just what do you think is the key benefit if you've got an agency listening that's deciding to specialize in maybe one specific offering like you have? What do you think are some of the benefits to an agency to really focus in and specialise in one area?
I think one of the benefits for the agency is that we are absolutely experts in that field. This is what we do day in, day out. So we will know all of the latest trends. We will know everything there is to do, from strategy right through delivery, right through to what the latest things are happening in creative. This is what we do day in, day out. And it becomes second nature. And second nature so much so that, you know, we forget this sometimes when we tell this to our own clients. You know, we have to sort of spell that process out, because we do it every day. Whereas our agency is video, it's an add-on, it's a bolt-on. It's just another service. What we do is, this is what we do every single day, and we do it because we love it.
That's brilliant. Andy, I remember a few months ago working with you, you were looking at trends that were happening in the market for some of your clients, weren't you? In terms of what was happening, future focus. And I've seen a lot of your posts on LinkedIn, which again is a very sort of impressive action for me to see from the account management community, actually positioning yourself as sort of leading in that field.
Yeah, and the people that you're working with, you've got to think, as Laura said, like video is very, very niche, and so it's a very, very small pot, but it is a rabbit hole when you start learning about it and you're starting to try and be forward thinking. And I think it's a great position that you can be in to do that, to then lead your client. They're not coming to you to you saying, can you do X, Y, Z? You're saying to them, look, I've spotted that this is happening. Your competitors haven't done that yet. I think you should be doing it, because that feeds into your objectives as a business. You want to be thought leaders. You want to be the best person in this business, best person in this industry. So we want to help position you like that. And we've got several clients that are like that. They have got very, very strong competition, and there's very, very little differentiation. And so by us like focusing on those little wins that we can kind of help them with. And as Laura said, it's stuff we do day in, day out, and it's almost very, very normal for us, but it's not for a lot of people. Like I say, video is a very, very small part of their marketing mix, but it's very, very powerful as well.
Laura, what do you think, above and beyond, you know, looking at future trends, what other things and bringing them to your clients, what other things do you think are valuable about the account management role?
I think one of the values that a strategic account manager brings to the client is that we really get to know our clients, both in a professional sense, but also in a personal sense, and having that greater understanding, an in-depth understanding of your client's objectives, their challenges. It allows you to understand the brief and to interpret the brief for the creative team. Like, the devil is always in the detail. And as a strategic account manager and account manager, if you don't have the answers for the creative team, you know, then we're never going to deliver a brief that is the creative that is on brief. And we almost have to act as if we are almost kind of creative directors in some sense as well. We have to have the answers. So you have to know your clients inside and out. You have to make sure that the brief is right, and you have to make sure you're adding that value and you're asking those questions and getting to know your client well enough so that the outcome of that brief is exactly what they're expecting, and it gets the results. Really, I think there's nothing worse than not having the answers for a creative team as a strategic account manager.
Yeah, it almost puts the personal pressure on you internally in the agency, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To kind of come up with the goods, but also forces you to ask the right questions in the briefing session with the client. Yeah. What's your experience been with, you know, briefs in general? I mean, I suppose we've all been guilty of doing a bad brief, haven't we, at some point in our career? I don't know about you, but I'm recalling a really bad moment in my career when I walked into the creative department, gave the brief, she read it, and then she just threw it across the room.
I had exactly the same experience.
Did you? I had to go out of the room with the tail between the legs.
Yeah, I had that in it's the second agency I worked in when I moved to Nottingham, and my creative director there, he was ruthless, and he would literally throw them back at me. I mean one after the other. But it was great learning. It was great learning to know, you know, what goes in comes with what comes out, and you have to ask all those questions, and you have to challenge the brief, because actually sometimes the client, that isn't actually what they need. It doesn't meet the objective. So actually, I have that quite a lot with my clients, in that I have to challenge the brief, and they appreciate that, because it shows that we're listening. It shows that we're listening, and it shows that we're using our expertise, and they trust us. And that often then leads to more work, because actually we now need to do another video that answers another brief, because we've been trying to put too much into one video, which ultimately dilutes the message completely.
I love that you brought that point up, Laura, because you're right. You're demonstrating your understanding by not criticizing, but being critical. Like critical thinking, I think with the client shows how senior you are, because that's the only way that then they trust you. If you are giving them your genuine advice. I mean, the subject recently of consultancy and us becoming consultants is so rife at the moment. Everyone's talking about, and a lot of account managers are changing their title to consultant. So I think that's a really key point. Similarly, there's a study by Gartner, actually, that was done at the end of 2019, all about why account managers aren't growing their existing accounts. And one of the things that it concluded was that there was this absence of having future-focused business conversations with their clients, which means that we are painting a picture of their vision for their future business, but we've got a critical perspective. So I think creating almost that tension in the relationship is part and parcel of becoming more senior as an account manager. What are your thoughts on this, Andy?
Well, I always used to be when you think of account management, sometimes you think of a relationship builder. That's what you are. You're there to build relationships. But I've seen myself shifting definitely more recently to a more challenger mentality. And I think that kind of shift does elevate you in your client's eyes. It adds additional value to them. And as Laura says, it allows you to get the briefs and get under the nitty gritty, so that when we go back internally, we can produce the best work possible because we've fully understood their business, we've fully understood their aims. And again, to reiterate what Laura said, sometimes a client says, I want an explainer video for this, and I want it done like this. And it's like, hang on, let's look at what you're trying to achieve. Let's look at who you're talking to, and let's see if that is the right way. You're saying you want live action, maybe animation's better. By having that, you can really get people to think, and it just builds momentum, and you start then to become a trusted advisor, and then they kind of reach out to you saying, right, we're trying to do this in 2021. We'd love to have your input on the content plan, and things like that open up a whole new avenue of conversation, a whole new added value to that relationship.
Oh, so true. That's so spot on. To kind of build on that point, what other skills do you think you need to be a great account manager or strategic account manager? Because this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about providing a level of service and a level of kind of consultancy to fulfill their business needs. So for both of you, really, I'd love to know what other skills you think are important.
I think listening is one of the biggest skills you need to have. As a strategic account manager, I think you must listen to your clients' needs, let them talk, let them hit what are the difficulties they're facing, what are the objectives, what have they done before, what worked, what didn't work, where are they at now, how is it affecting them. Listen, because out of that listening will come solutions that you can present to your clients. And that's not solutions just because you're getting a sale, it's genuine solutions that's going to help them achieve a goal. Interpersonal and communication skills, I think, goes hand in hand. You have to have those to do the job. People don't only just buy the work; people do buy our advice, and they buy us individually, and they buy us if we care. And I'd say integrity is really important. You should always act with integrity. The services that we offer should always be right for the client and the client's objective. We shouldn't be thinking about what products and services we offer that we can shoehorn into our client. It should be the other way around. So I think for me, those kind of 3 skills are key to being a strategic account manager.
I love that last point that you made about sort of our values, really, and our integrity. I spoke to an account manager only yesterday, actually. I'm going to interview him on the podcast. He's from a completely different industry. He's from the tech industry, and the projects he's working on are hundreds of millions of pounds. And he started off by saying values are the key thing for me, because if I'm not aligned with my company values, it's my reputation in the market, because at that level it's about your contacts and who you've created relationships with. So you've got to make sure that every role you have, you're aligned with your own personal values and integrity. So I love that point, Laura. I think really well made. Andy, what about you? Anything that you would add to what Laura said? I think there's some great things there.
Yeah, I think listening is vitally important, and I think sometimes if you just sit and listen, a client does genuinely want to kind of share more with you as well, because people like to share about the business, the things that they're proud of, the things that they want to improve, and they have genuine excitement about where they want to take their business. And I think I would add to that the inquisitive nature as well. If you've got an inquisitive nature and you probe in, you say that's interesting, I think I want to know more about that, I want to know more about that. And if it is genuine, that really comes across as well, and that goes really far in the relationship. A couple of things I would say would be adaptability. This market is ever changing. Tech's always changing that we use. Research tools are always changing. You've really got to be on it and willing to go with it if you want to be that forward-thinking account manager. I would say probably now more than ever as well, resilience is absolutely key. A hell of a lot of work goes into working with clients. So a lot of it behind the scenes as well. I think sometimes clients don't understand the work that goes into what you present to them, what your ideas that you're sharing, and sometimes it just doesn't come off, and that's the way it goes. And last year we had several projects pulled because of COVID, but a resilient nature gets you through those, and you get to reap the benefits as it comes back around when those conversations start up again. So I think resilience is a strong one that will put you in instead to be a decent account manager. And the only other thing I would add as well is just be a good human being. I think that's really important as well in these times. Just being a decent human being to each other, because it is, even though it's business to business, it's still person to person. So be a good person.
Oh no, that's such a
That's
lovely
nice.
point. It's so nice. You know, we started off the call, didn't we, with Laura shared that she's homeschooling at the moment, which I don't know about you, but a lot of my clients are homeschooling, and it puts a pressure on you, doesn't it? It puts a personal pressure on your life, and that's obviously going to spill over into the work life as well. So love that point. You know, be empathetic and be human. Lovely point. Yeah. Can you give me a few, I'm keen to have a few examples maybe from both of you as to, you know, perhaps how you were able to add value to a client and what the impact on their business was.
Yeah, I can kick off with a couple of examples. I might see whether these are quite right. So we were commissioned to do a video strategy for Thomas Anderson. Thomas Anderson are a very high-end window furnishings company, and the video strategy runs right from sort of initially running kind of business insights workshop sessions with the key stakeholders to gain insights into their marketing objectives, their goals, SWOTs, etc., an understanding of their entire business, right through to the final end of the video strategy. And one of the things I added to it, and it sounds very basic, but this is just kind of a way in which I think a strategic account manager should be thinking, is I added value by, I created, before we even went into these sessions, I created what I could put together like a pre-flight questionnaire. And in this pre-flight questionnaire, it asks all the different information that we would need to know for this project. So it's who are the people responsible? What are your marketing plans? What have you done? Who are your agencies? What trends do you use? What trend Bibles do you use? Kind of all of that kind of core information that we needed to get. And by gathering all that kind of basic information into like a big spreadsheet, which I could submit way prior to these workshops, it just allowed us, and the purpose of me doing that was not only to get the detail, it just allowed us to, there was so much detail we needed to know, but by knowing that, by thinking ahead and knowing that, we were able to allow us to have the time with those key stakeholders in that meeting to just purely focus on planning and getting their input into that process, which was, you know, one of the most valuable. They are time precious. We only had 4 hours maybe per session, so actually not getting bogged down in some of that detail, it really helps just add value. And I think that's just one thing that you can be thinking of as a tool as a strategic account manager. What can I do to make this process as streamlined as possible and to get the most out of both of those sessions?
That's really useful because that's repeatable, isn't it? Once you've put the effort into establishing your pre-flight questionnaire.
Absolutely, I can roll that out for other clients now.
Exactly. So and maybe someone listening is thinking, oh, we don't actually systemize the questions we ask, or we don't sort of dig deep enough. And all of that experience and learning, because when I'm hearing you both, actually, you rattle off the types of questions that you typically ask your clients, and it shows how ingrained that kind of behavior is for you both. So whilst for many people, maybe it doesn't come as second nature, but for you, I can see how sort of proficient you are with it. So I think that's a lovely idea and a great little tip for those listening, perhaps to do that. Because it also allows you to systemize your onboarding process, doesn't it?
Exactly that. It really helped with the onboarding. It helped with the client that had never done a video strategy before. It helped them gather the information all in one sheet, so they knew exactly what they needed. It gave them time to do it, and as I said, it really allowed us to really focus on the core objectives of what their business workshop was with the right people.
And what's the downside of not asking the right questions, Laura?
If you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to get the right brief. The brief won't be right. If you don't ask the right questions at that stage or the right information, your strategy, your recommendations could be completely wrong.
And time is money, isn't it, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. That's right.
Love it. Andy, what about for you? Any examples where you've been able to impact the client's business?
Yeah, I think we worked on a big project last year ahead of Brexit. It was for a road haulage company, and it's almost like a once in a lifetime opportunity for them to launch this product that they've been developing to steal them ready for Brexit. And it was unlike anything else in the market. There was no, it was like a true USP in a very, very competitive, price-driven commodity market. So we helped them market a product, which we know is a service, but it's called a product in the industry. And so what we did, we put together a multi-channel campaign for them, and they've never done marketing like this before. They relied heavily on telesales and very little on inbound. And so we created a multi-channel strategy with video at the focus. And so this was during COVID as well, so one of the toughest times to film, and it really kind of stretched us as an agency in terms of reaching this high quality production content. So we had like 35 people on set, we had stunt coordinators, we had COVID officers, we had everything kind of all put into this piece of high value content that we made the centerpiece of the campaign. And it was all about utilizing that and chopping that up in different ways that we could hit certain target markets. So we could remarket to them via YouTube, we could reach out to them on LinkedIn, and then that all kind of led to, that was a lot of generating awareness, and then we moved people further down the funnel, or around the flywheel, should I say, into the engagement side of things. So we helped them do a webinar. They usually do person-to-person event, face-to-face events in person, but we helped them do a webinar where we had over 1,000 sign-ups, over 800 new people engaging with them, and then that kind of filtered into really, really high quality leads that they then had the telesales and the team to then convert. So we generated a hell of a lot of leads ahead of what is going to be an intense time for a lot of people. So that's where we added some serious value, because they wouldn't have been able to get to that point in such a tight time frame. We're talking about 5-month time frame, from doing 0 all the way up to boom, let's do our biggest ever marketing campaign that we can do. So it was a lot of steep learning curves, and as a client say, they have a graph of pain that kind of goes up like that, and then it bubbles like that, and then another bit of growth comes out. So we've been in the graph of pain portion of that, but we really, really knocked out some incredible content and some incredible results. So that, for them to trust us with their most important opportunity in the industry that they've ever come across, and a lot of them have been in it for a long time, was quite something. Significant amount of pressure, but it was really, really great to have the opportunity to grab it and run with it, which we did as a team, and it took a hell of a lot of us to deliver those results.
A few things you've said, I love what you said. One of the things is a bit of a reminder about repurposing content and assets you've already got. I know that's something you particularly do really, really well, particularly in the COVID situation, because a lot of clients of ours have been tightening their belts, haven't they? But also like working with them with the whole strategy in mind, and then getting them results in such a short period of time. I mean, that shows a huge amount of agility on your part to have pulled that out of the bag and get that all done and get the results within that time frame.
I would say, yeah, we were quite nimble like throughout the process. And one thing that I do want to say is that we worked with that client, for me, not personally, but Skeleton, worked with that client for 7 years prior to that. So there was a lot of trust that had been built up, and it was an intense collaboration with the client as well. The client was fully dedicated to this opportunity as well. So there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of continuous communication. So when I talk about it being a team effort, it wasn't just about us, but it was about with the client as well. And I think that's something that helps drive results, is by having that, setting those common goals at the beginning, what you're trying to achieve, and then working to it and all committing to making it a success. And that's what both us and the client did.
I love that you brought that up as well, actually, because you're getting buy-in, aren't you? And the more of, you need to get all the stakeholders involved that are going to make that decision, bring them on that journey with you. And obviously you had built up the trust over 7 years, so they were more likely to say, okay, we trust you because you've done good work for us in the past. But I still think that's really good work.
Yeah.
Tell me, extending that a little bit, why do you think clients stay with you for the long term? I mean, 7 years is a long time for a client to stay with you. What do you think is the secret?
I think in terms of the way we work with people, it goes back to what we were saying before. We've got that challenger mentality. We're not just there just to execute what they say. what we do is that right at the beginning, we try and learn as much about the business as possible, so then we can kind of help them grow, help them develop. And I think it's just proving results. Like content that works, and then showing them the results and the return on investment of that as well. And it almost just becomes like natural, like second nature. Like, why wouldn't we do that? Because we know we've got previous track record of delivering X, Y, Z. So let's do that for this and see how that works. And I think that's just a big part of it. Is just always. So what happens a lot with agencies, like, yeah, I've done you a great bit of work. Here you go, whatever it is, that's it. And everyone kind of sits around and think, oh, that's really, really great. But that's, to me, in this account manager, that's almost like that's the beginning. That's the end of the beginning. The next part is seeing how that works, how you can improve what you've worked on, but also how you can build on in the future. And that's continual. It's not linear. It's a continual thing. And I think if you've got that kind of mentality, it does keep clients on board, because why wouldn't they? Because you're helping them grow their business. So I think that's probably the reason why people would stick with us and do stick with us.
Great.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, one of the things you both do really, really well is talk about your case studies in the context of always including business outcomes that you've achieved. And that's a really good point, Andy, about, the more outcomes you achieve for the client, the more results you achieve, it's perpetuating, isn't it? You can reflect on how much they've done with you, and then, build on that with further ideas using your trends analysis and your insight. So that's really the secret to momentum in terms of growing the account, isn't it? Laura, you were just going to say something. Have you got any?
Yeah, it was just similar to what, Andy was, just building on what Andy said, really. I just think that one of the reasons they stay with us is because, we listen, and we're not scared to challenge that brief. We really care, and we deliver. We always deliver, and we don't just sell. We are trusted, if not strategic advisors to our clients. It is this kind of perpetual cycle. It is not linear. We're not just order takers. That isn't how we like to work with our clients. And we like creating beautiful work that takes their audience on a journey, and ultimately drives those results. And we keep thinking of ideas and new ideas, how we can build on that. As you've mentioned, in the sort of current climate, how we can maximize their budgets by repurposing existing footage so that they've still got some content that they can still be communicating with their audience for, but within the new budget that they're now working with. So it's always kind of being agile and always listening to what they're doing.
Lovely. Andy, what were you going to say?
I would say the word that you use, then, momentum, I think that is absolutely vital when working with clients, to keep that wheel spinning, keep feeding them ideas, keep working with them. They're not going to say yes to every single one, but you're still giving them ideas, you're still adding value in some other way, getting them thinking. And I think maintaining that should be absolute priority. Once you work that hard to get it up to speed, maintaining that momentum, and another big word to set alongside that would be consistency. So be consistent with your clients, keep that momentum going, and that will drive results.
It's so true, because what's the worst that can happen? They say, well, no, that idea particularly, Andy, it's not the right time for us, or, that, doesn't particularly align with what we had planned for this year, but they're left with the perception of, wow, these guys are consistently bringing me new thoughts, new ideas based on their understanding of what's changing in the market. Because let's face it, our clients are very they go very deep in their products, don't they, in their business, but we go wide and deep in our industry and what's changing. So I think that's really valuable. Do you have any kind of forums or situations, meetings that you have those kind of more strategic discussions on a more regular basis? Or do you find that these are ad hoc ideas that you bring to them on a regular basis?
They can be, for me, a combination of both. So we have regular catch-up meetings with what I would say are sort of top clients, and then those catch-up sessions, they are more kind of strategic in terms of where they are in terms of the business, sharing quarterly plans, and we can get out of those sessions. We then sort of come up with some different ideas and suggestions, or it's just ad hoc because we're looking at latest trends for our different customer bases. So I have customers I've got a customer that's in beauty, I've got a customer that's interiors. So it's looking at those different trends and spotting different things. I literally before this call, I've just spotted something I've just sent to a client that I thought was amazing, but just on brief. Really, really interesting for their business. So I think it's for me, I think it's a combination of both, depending on clients, really.
That's a great tip as well, Laura, sort of keeping abreast of what's changing so that the news is coming to you on a regular basis, and then you're sharing it with your client and providing your point of view. Because I understand your business, because I understand where we are in the relationship, this is why I believe that this is particularly relevant for you, and perhaps this is the action we need to take. So I know that you both do that on a regular basis. So again, it's adding huge amount of value. Andy, was there anything else that you were going to add there?
No, very much the same as Laura. Sometimes you have structured meetings, and especially when you're doing like onboarding a client, you'll have a very kind of structured meeting to then break down ideas and then future kind of pathways that you can take with them. But I really, really love the organic approach. One thing that I do like to do is make sure I've got connected with people on LinkedIn. Everyone you work with, anytime you've emailed someone that is a potential working with them, add them on LinkedIn, because I think it's a really, really easy way to share ideas. As you're scrolling through LinkedIn, sometimes you see something, information about their industry, you think, oh, I don't know whether you've seen this, but I think this is actually quite cool and quite relevant to what we're working on. Or, oh, there's this new bit of software that can measure this. I know that might be useful for you. And so by having that, so there's a lot of stuff that happens organic, and it doesn't have to be some gigantic presentation that you're working on to show all your ideas. It could be something as simple as say, oh, I like how this brand's I'll give you an example, actually. We work with a project management company, IT project management company, and their biggest competitor did this amazing Christmas video. They spent mega bucks on it, and it was great. I said, oh, this is really, really great. Maybe we can do it next Christmas, type of thing, like joking around. But then after I'd watched that, I was getting hit with remarketing videos on YouTube. And so I was like taking screenshots of that and just saying, look, they're chunking this video up to hit me with, because I think I'm interested in it, because I've been researching. That's what we should be doing. Once we get to the end of the video project we're working with you on, we should be doing that. And I'd say it can just be those things. You don't necessarily have to come with a massive deck to pitch them ideas and just overwhelm them. I think the organic, it shows that you're thinking about them. And I think that's a key thing. That consistency, it links back to that consistency that I was on about.
You've both shared so much value and tips, for people listening. I think you're just like, bam, bam, what about do this, do that? It's really, really useful. Thank you. I was going to ask you, like, you're obviously, advanced in your careers, both of you. You've both done an awful lot, lots of exposure to different types of businesses, different types of role. You're very senior. What do you wish you'd learnt earlier in your career that you think would have been kind of really useful?
What do I wish I'd learned earlier? I wish that I had learned not to be afraid of the word strategy. I think earlier on in your career, the word strategy, particularly if you come from a full service sort of agency background, you always associate with an actual strategist. Actually, being strategic is just a different way of thinking. And I think that's something certainly of recent. I've really learned that actually not to be scared of that word strategy. And it's just a different mindset. It's just a way of breaking down information. And don't be early on in your career, don't be afraid to ask questions. They're your clients. You're just there to get the right information out of them. Be yourself. And the brief for me is key. The devil is always in the detail. If you don't challenge that brief, if you don't answer those questions, Seth has already said, the output will never be on brief, which is going to cost more money and more time and frustration for both parties.
Do you know what? I bet there are loads of people listening to this thinking, phew, about that strategy, because I think a lot of people do get bogged down with that. To say, oh, it's like this is someone's strategic and I'm not. And actually, we all are. It's just a different way of thinking, exactly as you said. So don't be afraid of it. It's just thinking differently. So I love that. Really good. And asking great questions. Again, you don't have to have all the answers in front of your client. In fact, don't let that hold you back. Just simply turning the conversation back to the client. Say, tell me a bit more about that. Give me a bit more detail. Or can you share a bit of background to that? Allows them to then give you more context. And then you can sort of, don't feel like you've got to have all the answers. I think you've both kind of, this has come through in this chat, listen and ask questions, I think is fundamentally what an account manager really should be doing all the time. Andy, what about you? What would you have said that you wish you'd known a lot earlier?
I would say the same as Laura, to be honest. A lot of it, there's no stupid questions. There's a lot of jargon and acronyms out there. Just don't be afraid to ask what they are, because if you think it means one thing, it could potentially mean another. So I'd always get those clarifications from people, because it is very, very broad when looking at those types of things. And as Laura said, be yourself, be genuine. I think people do love it. It's a people, person-to-person business. So on that, and then also I would say, obviously, no one's perfect and we do make mistakes. I think it's very important to own your mistakes as well. Don't ever try and cover them up or anything like that, whether it's internal or external. Own your mistakes. And because there are people, if you're just starting out, there will be people more senior who can help you. And I think clients do appreciate it if you have made a mistake, to put your hand up and say, look, I've made this mistake. This is what we're going to do about it, and go with them with a solution. It adds value through a mistake strangely. Obviously, don't go out making them intentionally, but I think owning your mistakes is a big important one.
And actually, that's a really brilliant point as well. Like if there is a mistake or if there is a problem, the way you handle that problem really can bond you with the client. It can make the client see you even more valuable, can't it? How you conduct yourself, how you tackle it, how you speak to the client, how you hold yourself. And actually, honesty, absolutely 100% agree, Andy, because you just tell a little fib without anything at any point, and your credibility's just gone through the floor. I'd love to continue in this theme for both of you to share with me your biggest challenges and how you've overcome them. Because I think, again, anyone listening to this, maybe on their account management career journey, either they're going to come up against a challenge or they might have experienced a challenge before. So from your perspective, what are some of the challenges you've had?
So some of the challenges that I get with clients are the clients don't like to be challenged on their brief, don't like to be challenged on the brief, and that is part of our job to challenge on the brief. Or we have a situation where we've gone past the briefing stage and we've sort of put together creative options, and they almost want a hybrid option, kind of mixing too many messages together, so that the end result is just mixed and confusing. It doesn't really have a clear creative thread or an idea running through it. For me, overcoming those challenges really is just to stop, pause, and call a meeting. Get all the key stakeholders in the meeting, the creative team if necessary, to clearly explain from our expertise the rationale for why we're making these decisions, so why we're making these recommendations, and what options are there to move forward. We are experts in the field. They're experts in their business, and it's about the two parties coming together and acting as a team, ultimately to get the best outcome. And often in that situation, you'll use antidotes or examples of where this happened for other clients, and you can even show other work and show how that the different impacts and the results that's had, just to bring it to life. And then from that, you get there. You can often sometimes have a bit of resistance between an agency and a client, and we're doing it for the good of the job, and we are experts, and that's why you're using us. So just calling that meeting, having a really open forum to talk like that, I find often just comes out of the really good result. I've had it on a project recently, and it ended, it was great. There was no problem. There was absolutely no problem after that meeting. We were all aligned.
I love that. I mean, a realignment meeting is brilliant, and presumably the client was open to having a realignment meeting.
Absolutely.
Some people call it mid-project review meetings. Typically we always do this just to make sure we're all on track, all on the same page. But that would make total sense to me to do that. Yeah. So if they don't like being challenged on the brief, how are there any other ways that you can shift that perception? Because maybe some clients, see us in that order taker bucket and say, no, just do it, just get on with it. How can you deal with that situation?
Those clients can be difficult. So we do have clients that I would say they take us, they don't want to work closely with us. They see us as a commodity, and they want to deal with us on more of on a transactional basis, and kind of no matter what advice we kind of want to offer them. It's very frustrating when they just want to see us as order takers, and ultimately that's not how we want to work with our clients. And it really is on that stage a challenge in the brief. It really is about talking to them about the best outcome, and these are the options that we have for you. We could do it this way, or we can do it this way, and this is the reason why. If we don't have this information, or if we don't have this information, or this isn't right, this is what we're going to end up with. So what we get quite often when you challenge on a brief is, many account managers will find this, is that the clients will want to say far too much in one piece of communication, and that's not just a video, that goes across absolutely everything. And that's one of the things that we always challenging is actually what are we saying and who are we talking to, and we really need to dilute this message right down. And sometimes when you spell that out in a brief, and you can turn it and flip it into something completely different, and you give them an example, then they then usually say, oh, okay, I see what you mean. Now this message is confusing. I don't know what you're trying to tell me. Or you can bring up a TV advert. You can bring up anything. You can bring up a really bad example as a reference to say this is why we're challenging you, because ultimately what we're going to end up with is something that's very confusing, that's not on brief, that doesn't talk to your audience.
Great. So it's kind of giving them an example of, if we carry on down this road, we're going to end up here, but actually we need to end up here, and here's why. And this is how it's usually done typically, and I mean, advertising, I mean, I come from an advertising background. It was always drummed into me. It's a one message medium, and you've got to be really clear with that one message. And some people just want to put all of their bullet points, and then the other one, make the logo bigger. Another one, isn't it? Andy, what about you in terms of challenges?
I kind of definitely echo what Laura said. Sometimes there's like the realignment meetings just to make sure you're on the right track, because the amount of time something can get misconstrued in an email, like tone obviously doesn't come through, and sometimes you'd be sat there thinking, did they mean it like this? Did they mean it like that? Just pick up the phone and call someone, or arrange a meeting. Just do it. It's much easier to kind of really understand what someone's saying. So just make time for those conversations when you need to. I think one of the other things that's always ever present is the pace of marketing that we mentioned earlier, and why adaptability is so important to kind of constantly try and stay ahead of the game. I think that's always going to be a case, not something that you just have to live with. And if you don't enjoy that, it'd be quite tough to be that kind of leader. So you generally have to have some desire to be able to do that, but even then it's still very, very kind of challenging. But we internally have forums where we can share great work we've seen, we can share great ideas, we can share what other people have been doing. And so I'd recommend that if you're part of a team to share that knowledge, and you kind of share the burden of all staying abreast of that. And I think that's something that's been quite powerful for us during COVID times, making time for that in the schedule to have a Zoom call or whatever it may be. And I also think one of the tougher challenges is not having access to the final decision maker, whether you're working with a partner agency and you've not got access to the client, or you're working with someone at mid-tier and they're reporting into C-suite. That is always a challenge to be able to get what you're trying to say to the final decision maker through an intermediary, and you basically got to equip that person as best as possible to do that. If you can't secure that and secure that direct dialogue, and that's always fall back on. I always push to get that meeting to the final person, because you're the experts, you know it all, and you can feel the questions that might be coming out of it. So always push for that. But then failing that, just make sure that the person that you deal with is fully equipped, got everything that they need. They feel confident in what you've gone through with them, to make sure they've got all the necessary tools. But that one is never going to go away, and that is just sometimes the way it is, especially if they're fielding pitches from multiple agencies, as it can happen. So yeah, that's one that always kind of you've just got to do your best given the situation.
I would totally agree on that, Andy. Just to build on it, I would say, like, when you have your projects that you're working on, it's kind of, if you haven't got access to that stakeholder, and you can't, and you fully equip your client, but just ensuring that you have all the key stakeholders involved at the key sign-off processes. So at each milestone, at the point of no return, that the key stakeholder in the business has at least signed that project off, or signed that milestone off.
And I think this is really good. It's a really good topic. Andy, so when you say equip them, do you mean provide your contact with a business case so that they can then present that easily to their C-suite?
Exactly that, yeah. And depending on what you want to do, whether you want to create a video for them, it can come in different formats as well, depending on how you want to get that across to them. It could be in a PDF, it could be in PowerPoint, whatever it is, as long as there's something on there that also sells the idea that you're trying to pitch them, but also sells your agency or you as well. I think that's sometimes important, because you're not going to be able to build that rapport with the end decision maker. So making sure that you've got a little bit of something in there that is personal, either about you or about the company, does help a little bit and give you a bit of credibility, but kind of pad that in towards the end. But build them the best business case you can. And then you've just got to hope that that's delivered in the way that you would want to deliver it, or as close as possible.
And Laura, you said, make sure that you have like key meetings where all the decision makers are around the table and all the key stakeholders, so that someone doesn't come in the last minute and say, oh, I've got to change.
Yeah.
Last night I spoke to my neighbour's daughter and she said, we might want to do this with the video. Has that ever happened to you?
Now we'd like it blue and green, please.
Make the logo bigger. What other ways can we make sure that we are reaching the key decision makers? Maybe our day-to-day contact is not a key decision maker. Any other thoughts on that?
making sure that we kind of it's introductions at the beginning of the project really, and making whoever our client is aware of what the key milestones are. So what the key milestones are, what are the points of no return, and what implications they will have to the business if that stakeholder isn't included. For instance, cost implications. So if we are going to put together a storyboard and we sign the storyboard off, or if we film something, which can be extremely costly, and we're traveling around the world to film it, and someone hasn't bought the buy-in from the initial concept, that's got massive financial implications. And the client will have to sign that off. So it's in their interests to share it with the key stakeholders, or to at least get the key stakeholders involved in an initial briefing session or an initial meeting, or at least make sure that they are presenting it to them on our behalf. So it's kind of trying to flip it back really to the client. Always, it's in their interest. It's not just in our interest; it's in their interest to make sure that this brief is going to go. It's going to be right.
Great tips here about sort of managing expectations from the beginning. You know, making sure that you have all of these conversations up front as part of your onboarding process. So lovely tips. Thank you so much. A few sort of tactical questions. What tools do you tend to use in your job? Any sort of apps or tools that you think that help your account management process?
We use HubSpot for our CRM tool, which is our main CRM tool that we use. We use Trello boards to manage our projects, actions, kind of daily management tools. Jamboard's really good, you know, especially at the minute because we're working remotely, just because we can't get into a situation where we're in a boardroom with loads of sticky notes. It's a virtual sticky note board, which is quite cool to use.
Oh, is that Jamboard? How do you spell that?
Jamboard, yeah, Jam and then board. Yeah, it's part of Google Suite, G Suite, and it's really cool. It's really easy. We've used it for a few like brainstorming sessions and stuff, and it's worked quite well actually. And you can use it for clients and stuff as well. We use, as a business, we use Toggle and stuff as a time management tool, but project management tools really Trello, HubSpot, Jamboard.
Cool. Thank you.
I'm sure Andy's got loads more.
Andy?
Yeah, I do love a good tool. To be honest, to help make our life a little bit easier. I would say HubSpot again is my absolute my favorite that we work with. It can track email, so if you're working across an account with all the people, they can see the clear communication that you've had, which allows you to borrow further if you're sharing an account. Other things that I do like, it has trackable documents you can send, so you can see if your clients are engaging with the content that you're sending them, whether it be PDF or something similar. It's got tasks in it as well, which I think is really, really vital. Sometimes you've got an email, you can set a task to follow up, or you can set a task to do this by a certain date, and then you can just go to your task list and just work through them. Because I think that one of the hardest things you can do, probably should mention this earlier, is create structure as an account manager, to give yourself some structure of where you should be spending your time. And the HubSpot helps me do that. I think other things that really, really help, we started using Frame.io for feedback. So it's not just about doing great work for our clients, it's about making ourselves as easy as possible and stress-free to work with as possible. Frame.io is one of the tools that we've recently invested in that really help us do that.
And what does that do specifically?
So it seems such a little thing, but so what essentially is, it's a tool for reviewing video. So you can easily just kind of like click on the video where you want the comment on the timestamp, and then it's also got revision history as well, so you can see what feedback was given at stage 1 to then reflect back on that and look at stage 2, see where those changes have been implemented, and then be able to work that way. And it just gives a very kind of clear idea to the client. So if they're reporting internally what's happening with the project, you can say, right, we're at stage 1, this is where we're at stage 1, these are the changes that we've proposed to make. And more than ever is powerful because it allows that collaboration from wherever you are. It's very rare someone's going to sit and watch a video in an office and you've got all stakeholders around. So anyone from anywhere, and you can do it in different time zones. You can even have conversations on it. So if someone says, I want this being red, and someone's underneath, well, I don't want it red because of X, Y, Z, and say, yeah, okay, we'll make it green. So it's got things like that. And it seems such a small snippet, but it's all part of owning your client and owning that experience. So keeping that momentum going, because I think sometimes it's not just about great quality of work. It's about how easy you are to work with as well once things get going. So there's that. And then a biggie that I've used a lot, especially with the campaign that I mentioned earlier, is Wistia. So Wistia is a video hosting platform, but it's got great analytical tools on it. So you can see where people are dropping off, you can see rewatchers, you can see where people are engaging on call to actions. It really, really does help then, because you can see how well the content's performing. You think people are rewatching this part. Do we break that down further and create some content around that, people will be rewatching it because they want to know more about it, or they don't fully understand it in that video. So let's expand upon that and create some content for it, and then you measure that. So Wistia, and I know there's other video hosting platforms that do that, but I don't think anyone quite does it as well as Wistia. So that's a really kind of big tool for me to show that added value that we bring.
Very valuable, very valuable. Thank you so much. I'll add a couple more just on from my side. Streak is something that I use that integrates with Gmail. So it's like HubSpot, but it does what I want it to do in terms of CRM. Mural and Miro, you've probably come across them, but for collaboration and, you know, everyone doing post-it notes, a brainstorming session, some kind of strategy session is often useful. But thank you for sharing. Those are really, really useful. How do you, just two more questions because I'm conscious of your time. How do you see the account management role evolving in the future?
I think the role will become more strategic for an account manager. We are strategic account managers, and I think within agency businesses, account managers will be given more remit, more trust, and more confidence to get to know their clients better. I think there'll be less of a hierarchy like there has historically been in agencies, and more ownership for the account managers to really get to burrow into those clients and get to know them better, and work with them more strategically.
Amazing. What about you, Andy?
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. I think expect it to be more integrated into your client's company, their client's team. I think that will be an expectation, and it's something that we do now, but it will. Now it's slightly out of the norm, but it will become the expectation. And I think that's where it's going to go. And it's just going to be all about getting to know absolutely anything and everything you can about that client and about the business and the way the business works. So not just about their market, but the way the business works, because that makes it so much easier when you're dealing with the more process side of things, like sign off, like Laura was on, like already getting everyone on board, those types of things. And not only, I say, producing great content, but you're making yourself as easy as possible to work with. I think that'll be a big part of it. But I think the thing at the moment is no one's too sure what that looks like, and I think that's probably a really exciting prospect, because we really don't know what that is, and we're able to kind of help shape that.
I agree with you, and the point you made, Laura, was really key. I think the idea of consultancy, being more like a management consultant, understanding their business problems, I think it's a huge trend. And in fact, I was very thankfully invited to a roundtable discussion the other day with a group of client services directors for Beamer, and that was the one topic that we're talking about, this idea of consultancy, because many account managers are having their names changed to consultant. That's the trend that's happening, and being more consultative. So I think you're right, and it goes without saying that you've got the likes of Accenture, Deloitte, PwC buying creative agencies left, right, and centre. So that kind of trend is that the two are kind of merging. So I absolutely agree. I think that's spot on. Just finally, any kind of final bits? You've shared so much value, by the way. I just thank you so much, both of you. Any final advice or tips for someone who perhaps is listening to this and thinking, I love the idea of being more of a strategic account manager? Any advice for them?
I would say advice for them would be, first of all, don't be afraid of that word strategy again, because it really is about just getting to know your clients a bit more. Ask the questions, listen. Don't be afraid to challenge the brief, as we've said. Immerse yourself in their world. Sign up for top tips, tips and trends and things that are happening. If you've got a client that's in fashion, or you've got a client that's interiors, or whatever their business might be, SaaS tech, immerse yourself in that world, get to know it, so that you can really add some value and show that you've got some input into it as well, and enjoy it.
Lovely advice. Thanks, Laura. What about you, Andy? Any parting tips?
Oh, obviously, it's taking your course, Jenny. That's the big one. I
did not pay you to say that, did I? I didn't pay you to say that. No, that's very sweet.
No. In all seriousness, obviously, working with you has really helped both of us, and it's given us confidence, it's given us structure, and it's given us some great tools that we can build on, because we already had a lot of good skills. So it was good knowing, we've got those skills and we're good at it. That's a confidence part, and it's like, right, where do you take this next? And I think if you're looking at the bigger picture, I think learn from the leaders in the industry, I guess. We'll learn from that, adapt your approach, be prepared to fail, because not everything you try is going to work, but then you make sure you're okay with that, reflect, and you go again. And I think, again, just constantly just wanting to learn, consume as much information, and don't be afraid to try something that might be a little bit different, a little bit alien, but once you've done it a few times, it very much becomes a part of who you are. So I think looking at people who are out there doing it right and who have been doing it right for a number of years, I think is a great way to kind of look up to those people and try and emulate some of the stuff that they do that really works.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Andy. And I really appreciate the feedback. I think you two were an absolute pleasure to work with. Like, absolutely, you know, you had it all, but working together, I think I just saw that kind of enhanced kind of level of, you know, consultancy. But if someone has really kind of enjoyed this chat and want to get hold of you, who particularly do you work with, client wise, that who might be listening and thinking, I really love the sound of utilizing video in such a strategic way for my business, and how can they get hold of you?
I mean, in terms of clients that we like to work with, all clients, so from startup companies to SMEs to global organizations who have got a story to tell. What we do, we make videos. It's the art of storytelling, and it's the art of storytelling mixed with whatever that's going to be live action, animation, and what that looks like. But we are telling a story that is ultimately going to make somebody, an audience, do something, and from that doing that something, there's going to be a result. And if that's, you know, whether you're, you know, any of those organizations that I've just mentioned, and you're in B2B or B2C, you know, we'd love to work with you. We'd love to show you what we could do.
Brilliant. And how can people reach you? What's the best way?
Best way to reach us is via our website, really, and our details are on the website, or directly at our email addresses. And mine is laura.cohen@skeletonproductions.com.
And is the website skeletonproductions.com?
The website is skeletonproductions.com, and all our contact details are on there.
Lovely.
As are our faces.
Great, your lovely faces. Well, thank you both so much. Honestly, that was really, really brilliant. And I think so many people would have got so much value, so many ideas coming through. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
No problem. Thank you very much for having us, and thank you very much for your course. You really have added so much to us. And yeah, I think both Andy and I have really benefited from the course. So thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolute pleasure.